And we're back, Max. It feels like a lifetime ago after the long Sunday we had yesterday, but UFC Fight Night on Saturday. Break it down for me.
Yeah, I'm just gonna walk through most of the main card. The prelims weren't too exciting or noteworthy, other than the Oda Osborne KO. But there's only so much time in this segment, and so I kind of want to get straight to the stuff that interests me. But I guess I'll kick it off saying that was a phenomenal knockout to open the card by Osborne. Um, Not a lot else. I do remember him on the last Conor McGregor card talking a lot of shit, saying he was going to be the next Conor. Conor will be fighting on his card someday and then getting guillotined. So props to him for taking a year, figuring some things out, and then getting back in there with a 30-second knockout. But he got guillotined by Brian Kelleher, someone who's been in the division and gotten plenty of wins and like face some of the top guys, and he got the knockout of a guy I think making his UFC debut. So there's still levels, but nicely on the right track. Moving on to the main card, Danilo Marques with a fantastic performance, culminating in a rear naked choke over Mike Rodriguez, who you've got to feel tough for after his last loss to Mike Herman, or Ed Herman. I I'm kind of surprised Marquez was as big of an underdog as he was in hindsight. I mean, he's a grappler and he's going up against a guy who just got submitted in his last fight. So, a little mad I didn't look at the betting lines a little closer on this one, but he put on a great performance. He kind of came out the first round and went right to the takedowns with like some really nice trips after getting the body lock and just making it tight, and he didn't really do too much with it in the first round. Just kind of wore on him, made some reads, put some pressure, searched for things, which I'm fine with one round of that, because then in the second round I really liked what he did. He just waited. He took his time. He didn't rush straight into it. That kind of thing is a bit of a one trick pony. The opponent's going to be thinking about it, so make them sweat, make them wait. When you think the striker would be the one who's happy to be on the feet in this situation against the grappler, but I think there must be a lot of nervousness and apprehension and just when's it going to come? When's the shot going to come? And just making them sweat for 60 seconds like really helps your cause, and you use that apprehension to land a great overhand right. And then I think he went in on a single leg the second time. So switching up from the trips, keep again, like not being a one trick pony. And this time I felt like he had a lot of opportunity to pass to first mount in the first round. He didn't take it because he wanted the ground time. This time he did take it, set up some nice bombs, ground and pound, more pressure, just wearing on him the whole time. And then with like 30 seconds left in the round, uh, Rodriguez was trying to escape back to his feet. Marquez followed him beautifully, dragged him to the ground, and then set up a really pretty rear naked choke. I love to see that attack with the right hand, make him hand fight, and then like switch it into a left hand. He did it perfectly, and that was all she wrote. That's 2 wins in a row for Marquez, Marquez, and a really thoughtful, precise, versatile, patient. I don't. Those are the words I'd use to describe that performance, and it was very impressive. The next fight absolutely lived up to the hype for me. Beniel Dariush versus Diego Ferreira, the two guys with the second and third longest winning streaks in the lightweight division, not counting Khabib Nurmagomedov, which I don't. I think he's well and truly retired at this point. So, two biggest winning streaks in the division behind Charles Oliveira, and a phenomenal performance by Dariush against a really excellent fighter in Ferreira. I mean, Dariush just put on the pressure, and he ate some shots to do so. He walked forward a little recklessly, but what was important was he was making Ferreira pay the whole time. He was always landing his strikes first and then getting caught on counters. And I think if you're going to fight that way, you've got to land hard and you've got to land first, and that's going to take a little something off the counters. And what was most impressive, I think, about that striking pressure was it let him time some beautiful takedowns, especially in the second round. But just walk forward, throw heavy, make your opponent read, make him react, and then when he's so much thinking about the striking, the takedowns are going to be there. That is what mixed martial arts is all about, using the striking to set up the grappling and using the grappling to set up the striking. And Dariush did it beautifully. There was some awesome scrambling. I mean, they're both I think medalists in like the world BJJ competitions, so the omoplata and leg lock defenses we saw from Ferreira were fun to watch. Looking at Dariush stay like very comfortable in those offensive or dangerous positions for him and just find a way to get his offense off and win rounds like that was fantastic. I scored all 3 rounds for him. I don't know what the hell that one judge, which actually gave Ferreira the fight, was on. I can see making the argument for Ferreira in the 3rd round, but I thought Dariush had better pressure and landed better shots on the feet. But I think when one guy's looking to get takedowns and then those takedowns don't come in a round, you just sometimes that will sway judges to score the round for the strike guy who's defending the takedowns, even if they do get a little outstruck. That's what I saw anyway. I haven't rewatched that 3rd round, but amazing performance from Ferreira, or from Dariush over Ferreira. And I loved what he said in his post-fight interview. Why are you making us 2 guys on these 5 and 6 fight winning streaks fight each other? We should be fighting up into the division. We've earned the right to challenge these top guys. I just fought this guy and he is a tough son of a bitch. He still deserves to be fighting up. And I completely agree with him. Like, I wish I'd love to see way more turnover in the division, where because right now it's so hard to get into that top position that once they get there, they're kind of cemented there for a while. Like you look, Dan Hooker had to go through such a impressive winning streak to get into the top 5. But then once he's there, he kind of gets to hang there for a while. It's similar with like Paul Felder and the top 10. I wish after like one loss they would immediately start fighting down. And I really hope to see Dariush like kind of as an alternate almost in the like lightweight title contention picture, where I think Poirier versus Oliveira is the fight to make. I think Gaethje versus Chandler would be an absolute banger. I I'd be happy to see McGregor fight like a Ferreira. I'd be happy, um or RDA maybe, but I want to see Dariush right in there against one of those guys. I don't want to see him fighting anyone ranked below him or anyone like ranked close to him. He absolutely deserves a chance to crack the top with the run he's put on. And same with Ferreira. Like he looked great. Just Dariush looked better. So my like Ferreira's stock didn't really fall in my opinion. I think just a rest a wrestler with the BJJ chops of Dariush is like one of the worst matchups for Ferreira. I think Dariush is just in another gear right now, and that mental zone he entered in the striking, that like fearlessness to walk forward, but still with the timing and power to land good shots, not just eating stupid ones needlessly. Just is too much for a lot of guys unless you've got like one shot knockout power. And even if you do, you have to still set that up. And I mean, Ferreira had some great counters, some good moments, but Dariush too much for him. I'd love to see like Ferreira fight like a Paul Felder if Felder's still fighting, but it's tough. Like these guys spend their whole careers trying to get into the top 10 of the division, and then once they get there, they're so afraid to have that taken away from them. And that's where what you see guys like Paul Felder at right now. So I'd like to see more turnover. I kind of hope Tony Ferguson just disappears from the top 10 of the lightweight division and goes and has that Nate Diaz fight he called for, because that would be a really, really fun one. So congratulations to Beniel Dariush. Phenomenal performance. Watching the striking evolve to catch up to the grappling and make him such a dangerous fighter in such an awesome division is fantastic. Hats off. There were a couple, the next two fights I'm just going to skip over and move right along to the co-main event, where Cory Sandhagen knocked out Frankie Edgar in 30 seconds with a flying knee. Did you see the highlight?
Oh yeah, and I was showing it to my friends. That was electric. I don't know much about either of them, but it seems like people were saying that that was his like kind of big moment to kick off his run. So maybe a bit like what's the guy's name?
Masvidal?
Yeah, that maybe
Yeah.
this is the kind of comp there.
I mean, there's a lot of parallels you can draw to that knockout, as just the striker landing the flying knee to put the wrestler out cold. I don't know. I mean, he also had a fantastic knockout in his last fight with a spinning back kick. So that's two really impressive knockouts he's put together over two really tough, dangerous opponents who I mean, Marques just got finished by Font, but before that, he'd only been finished once by Cejudo. And that was Edgar's, I think, third time being knocked out. And there's some parallels to the Ortega knockout. Ortega did it with an uppercut. And what the parallel is that wrestling style, level change, feinty style of Edgar just let him be timed and walk right into something that heavy. Sandhagen just moving backwards for the first 25 seconds of the fight to figure out the speed and movement of Edgar. I talked in the breakdown about the versatile weapons that he has, and he tossed a couple leg kicks in there to give him something to think about. And he's just so dangerous, having like the ability to throw the spinning kicks, the front kicks to get the pressure off, the head kicks if you let your guard down there. Obviously, or not obviously, but the hands are very crisp as well. And just such a versatile, dangerous wheelhouse from Sandhagen. And he pulled out the perfect tool in the perfect moment, just moving to his left, letting Frankie circle on the power side, getting a read on how much time Frankie needs to close space, and then waiting for that wrestling style that Dan Henderson kind of iconized of, you can feint for a takedown, you can go for a takedown, or you can make it look like you're going for a takedown and toss the overhand right. And it looked to me like it was the latter that Frankie was doing, like dipping his head, throwing his hand over it, and that works great. But this is the adjustment you make against that level change, and it was timed and executed perfectly by Sandhagen. He's calling for the winner of Aljo Jan, and I think he absolutely deserves that way more than TJ Dillashaw. Either way, I think it's a fantastic fight. I loved the little snark or quip he had to Jan about, like, hey, you want to fight Dillashaw? I don't even think you're going to get past Aljo. And the respect he has for Aljo, I mean, of course, after Aljo submitted him, but he's still being like, I owe him a nap. But a very somber tone from him as well. I mean, Frankie Edgar is UFC royalty. Just when you've held a belt and you've managed to stay relevant and stay threatening and stay at the top of a division for so long, there's no other way to describe it than UFC royalty. And I don't know where he goes from here, because he looked like himself in the Munoz fight. I don't think there's many guys who can do that to him, but this does set him fairly decently back from a title picture. I think, I mean, Aldo called for a Dillashaw fight, which would be fantastic, but I'd also love to see Edgar welcome Dillashaw back to the octagon. So maybe some legacy but top of the division fights for him would be interesting. I think if he still wants to fight, he still has the ability. But it was a rough night for the old guard for the most part in this fight and in the main event with Alexander Volkov knocking out Alistar Overeem. Did you see that one or just the crazy? I'm just curious how like spectacle of knockout versus on gravity on the card makes its way into mainstream highlights. Well, Alexander Volkov, similar to his last fight against Walt Harris, just was able to get very comfortable, very in the zone, figure out the reads defensively, and just let the offense flow. I have a couple words written down like patient, accurate, and powerful. His nickname is Drago. If I assume that just translates Russian into dragon, I think Titan would be a little more fitting because he's just so menacing, like being so patient, taking his time, picking his shots, and ramping up the volume. And Overeem just wasn't able to mix it up in a way that made Volkov like stop, reconsider, or disrupt his flow. I mean, they're such big boys and they're in a slightly smaller octagon, so 3 steps backwards and your back is against the cage. I thought that shell defense would get him into trouble. It worked great against like the hooking style of Sakai, but the straighter punches of Volkov are more poised to get through that shell guard, and just power started landing heavy and instantly. And Volkov keeping his reach didn't let Alistar get off any like knees as he did against Sakai. He wasn't he was trying body kicks, he was trying like teep kicks to the knee, he was throwing that overhand which connected a couple times, but the night was all Volkov's. He even when the overhands landed, he managed to roll his head with them and not really get staggered or hurt at all. And he just had such confidence walking forward that you knew it was just a matter of time. And it really was. It didn't take that long. A couple minutes into the second round, Volkov just, I mean, I have him ranked as the third best heavyweight in the world behind the champion. We'll see for champion Stipe, number one in Ngannou, number two Blades. But below that, I don't think anyone beats him. I mean, Blades and Ngannou are just so special athletically that I think the slower, more patient Volkov struggles to deal with that initial burst of speed and athleticism. We saw that very recently against Blades. Maybe he can make some adjustments and find the flying knee. He did do a better job in those later rounds, kind of throwing lower, looping, uppercutty shots to discourage the takedown attempt. But Volk just polishing his game and really finding his comfort zone has been the story of those last 2 fights. He just looked so loose and relaxed and in the flow of the striking against both Harris and Overeem. And when he gets like that, the finish is just a matter of time. So maybe he fights. We've got 2 big heavyweight main events coming up, and after those, I will do a little more heavyweight matchmaking. Depending on how those 2 shake out, you can see some different matchups for Volkov. But for me, tonight demonstrated he is absolutely the best heavyweight in the world behind the aforementioned 3. So fantastic performance by Volkov. And I don't know about Overeem. He's looked good in his last few fights. I don't think he looked terrible in this fight. I just think Volkov is that good. Overeem gets huge paydays when he steps into the octagon, and I think he's still a problem for most of this division. So I don't see him getting to the title now. Like we talked about, this as his last title run, and that's over. But if he still wants to fight, I think he still can fight, and that's kind of what his Instagram post hinted at. Like, can't wait to get back in the gym. So, I mean, he's going to have his own legacy when it's all said and done. And the ability to compete at a high level at such an old age is very, very impressive, just like it is with Edgar. And so, if he still wants to fight, I think he can. And we'll see what's next for him. Maybe the UFC takes some pity and finally gives him a grappler. And that's gonna wrap up this fight night recap and this combat corner. Tune in Friday for the preview of Usman versus Burns.